Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen set to deliver remarks on the U.S. China relationship today. According to excerpts of a speech released by the Treasury Department, Yellen will say that America wants constructive economic ties with China, but is also planning to push back against the country's efforts to dominate foreign competitors. Join us right now for more on this critical geopolitical relationship. Ursula Burns is here, Teneo chairwoman, former Xerox CEO and current board member at Exxon and Uber. And Michèle Flournoy is here, co-founder and managing partner at WestExec Advisors. Teneo owns a majority stake in WestExec. Michèle also, of course, served as the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy from 2009 to 2012. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
We hear a lot of rhetoric around China right now, mostly from the U.S. It feels like there's more rhetoric from the U.S. towards China necessarily than China towards the U.S., but I don't know. I'm curious if you think that's the right way to think about it and what to do about it, if that's the case.
I think it is the right way to think about it. I mean, I don't know what's happening in China, what they're saying in business circles in China, but in the United States, China is probably the top issue that businesses are dealing with, boards and CEOs are dealing with. Even if you don't have a business center in China, it's an area of high interest and high concern. One is it's a large population that we want to have access to sell our goods and services. Obviously, we want that competition for that space to be fair, balanced, et cetera. And up until this point, it has not always been. That's one of the reasons why we pay so much attention to U.S. policy, U.S. government actions in China. The second is that we want to actually make sure that we protect our national security interest. Big deal. Believe it or not, CEOs are interested in that as well. We don't want to give away things that would endanger our future. And then the third, there are areas that we should work together on. Climate, for example, human health. These are all things that we have to be engaged with, and CEOs and boards are spending a lot of time on it.
Would you prefer that all these U.S. businesses are doing business in China or not right now?
Look, for 30 years, we've been telling U.S. business, invest in China, help engage them in the international economy, make them a responsible stakeholder. And for the last 10 years, with the rise of President Xi, China's really changed its stance. It's adopted a much more assertive, even aggressive posture around the Taiwan Straits, around the world, in various areas. And so now I think we're not decoupling. That doesn't make sense. It's not really possible. But in areas that touch on national security, on technology, our technological competitiveness, which will give us our future economic edge, in those areas we need to start, disentangling. And I think a lot of businesses find themselves kind of walking in a minefield of U.S. China relationship. But can you do one and not the other? I mean, this idea that we can basically maybe decide we're going to block TikTok, for example, and what the ramifications could be on a Starbucks, meaning a business, things that you may think of as being unrelated, but if you're the Chinese government, you might just decide I'm going to relate everything to each other. You'll see China will start taking some, actions of retribution in some ways, but they are trying to project this message of, hey, post-COVID, we are open for business. We want foreign investment. We want your technology. We want your investment here in China. So they have to walk a line, too, to not chill that environment and scare off Western businesses.
And the thing we have to understand is that we have technology that is useful, valuable. We have a consumer base that is actually attractive to them as well. So I agree 100%, we're going to run into some unclear and very risky areas, but we have to keep pushing.
When you're talking to other businesses, or by the way, you're on the board of Uber. I mean, Uber effectively got out of China. What?
We directly.
But the question is, do you want to be in China right now? Would you, if you were going to make an investment in China today, if China's saying we're open for business, please come.
Yep.
A, do you want to be there because you're worried about what China may do to you? And B, are you worried about being there because of what America may do to you?
Yeah. In the two areas, the answer would be yes to most businesses. The answer would be yes. Just about everybody we advise at Teneo wants to be there and actually is desirous that we can do that sooner rather than later if they're not there and grow our presence. But it has to be under this context of national security, fair competition. If we can't get it there, then I think we're going to have to settle for significantly less access to that market.
It's very hard to answer the question abstractly. You got to work with each business has to really do an assessment of what are their supply chain vulnerabilities, their dependencies. If there were a crisis, say, over Taiwan, how would that play out? how would that affect their business?
Right.
And that's exactly the kind of scenario planning and sort of red teaming that we're doing to try to help CEOs navigate this.